Yo, what's good, guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So today's story time is definitely a interesting one, okay? Now, this takes place back in 2018. This takes place when I was still living in California. I was actually in the process of slowly moving back to New York. So I went back to New York around this time, toured a couple apartments, and ended up leasing an apartment. And essentially I had two apartments at the same time. I had my LA one, where the lease was going to be up in a few months, and then I had my New York one, which was starting out now. Now I'm going to be honest, it wasn't the smartest thing to do financially, but it was still good that I had both ready, because that way when I moved out of one, I'd have the other one ready right when I was, ready to move back to New York. So I had this weird in-between period where I had both apartments and I was in the process of moving out of one and going back to the other. So essentially what I was doing was I would go back to LA for 2 weeks, slowly pack stuff up, see my friends, say goodbye to them, and I'd go back to New York, get the stuff that I shipped out, set it up in my new apartment, and I'd go back to LA. And it was really stupid and just really not smart to do. One, because I was spending way more money than I needed to. Looking back, if I could redo it, I would just literally pack everything up in a U-Haul and pay somebody to drive it across the country, or just pay a moving company to ship everything for me and move for me. It probably would have been cheaper than what I did, but it's too late. So yeah, I had this weird in-between period where I had two apartments in two places, one in New York, one in LA, and I was moving back and forth a lot. Now that you know that, let's get into the story. So this all starts off like any day back then, okay? I'm in my room, I was in LA, packing up stuff. I was working on a video at the same time. I'd record a couple lines and I'd go back to packing. And I was just doing my thing. I was being productive, right? Now at this point, I had been in LA for a week and a half. So my apartment back in New York was just kind of laying vacant, waiting for me to come back and move my stuff in. And I gave one of the keys to my friend because I wanted him to look after it while I was gone. We'll just call this friend Jordan, okay? And on this day, while I'm in my apartment in LA, doing my thing, making my video, packing stuff up, I get a FaceTime call from Jordan. I answer it. I'm like, hello. And Jordan's like, hey man, I got some bad news. I was like, what is it? He's like, I lost the spare key you gave me. And I was like, are you kidding me, bro? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm so sorry. I was at work today, and after I got home, I couldn't find it. I think I dropped it somewhere at work. I'm going to keep an eye out. I'll check lost and found tomorrow. But I just wanted to let you know that I lost it. Now, this was a problem for a couple reasons. One, it was my only spare key. So now I only had one key, and it was with me in LA. Two, the key had the apartment name engraved on the key, and then there was a little tag attached to it on the key ring that had my apartment number. So whoever got the key that wasn't Jordan, if someone picked it up or anything, they would know exactly where I lived, and they would know exactly what apartment to go and use the key on, and they would just have access to my place. So obviously this wasn't good. This was not a good thing at all. So I immediately freak out, and I go to call my apartment leasing office, the one in New York, to tell them hey, my spare got lost, and it had the apartment name and number on it. I don't want people using that or going into my place and stealing stuff. So can you get me a new one and change the locks? But when I called the office, they were closed. I don't know if they were on lunch break. I don't know if they just weren't open on that day. And I just kept calling and they would not answer. I just kept getting the same voicemail, which was really weird because in New York at the time, I think it was 1 or 2 p.m. and it was a weekday. So they should have been open. But yeah, no matter how many times I tried, I couldn't get through to them. I left quite a few messages, all of which kind of said the same thing. They all essentially said hey, this is Austin. I lost my spare key. I don't want someone going into my place, so please change the locks ASAP. I'll pay for it and make me new keys. So after I called them a few times, they didn't answer, and I left those messages. I kind of gave up on calling them for the day because there wasn't much else I could do. And I called Jordan back on FaceTime. I was like, all right, man, I just tried to talk to the leasing office. They weren't open. At least the phone wasn't. So maybe you can try going down there for me. He's like, okay, sounds good. I'll go right now. Give me the address. So I texted it to him. He hangs up with me. And now I'm feeling a lot better about the situation, right? I'm like, okay, this is good. Jordan's going to go to the leasing office, get me some new keys, get my locks changed. It's going to be all good. And then 20 minutes later, I get a text message from Jordan. And it says, hey, man, office is closed for some reason. Not sure why. It's not a holiday. I'll let you know tomorrow if I can get to them. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So the rest of that day goes on with no problem. Really nothing out of the ordinary. Just a regular night/day. And the next day rolls around. And I call up Jordan on FaceTime. He answers. I'm like, yo, you try going to the office today? He's like, yeah, I'm about to go there right now, actually. I'll let you know what happens. I'm like, okay, sounds good. And we hang up. Well, 20, 30 minutes later, I get a text message and it says, hey man, just got into the office. They were open. Talked to one of the leasing agents. She said they're going to be putting in a request with maintenance to get your locks changed within the next few days, and they'll make you new keys that you can come pick up when you're here from LA. And I was like, dude, thank you so much. Like, I appreciate it. He's like, yeah, no problem. They did say it was going to be like a $200 charge though. And I was like, all right, fine. So now I'm thinking I'm fine, right? I'm thinking I'll get home from LA soon. My locks will be changed. I'll get my new keys. Everything will be fine, right? The only thing I was a little nervous about was how long they were going to take to change my locks. I really wanted them to do it within the next couple days, but they didn't really give me a time frame of when it was going to be done. So I was a little on edge the rest of the week, I won't lie. Well, the next week rolls around. Now it's time for me to go back to New York. So I did. I booked a flight. I left like the next day, flew back to New York. First thing I did was Uber to the leasing office of my new apartment, get my new keys for the new locks, and I head to my apartment and I go to unlock the door and make sure that none of my stuff is stolen by whoever got my old keys. Forgot to mention, by the way, Jordan did check the lost and found at his job. They never found the old ones. So yeah, they were gone. Anyway, I go to my apartment. I try the new key and the new lock. It unlocks. That's good. And then I open my door to a sight that nobody wants to see. I open my door, and the first thing I see in the middle of my apartment, in the kitchen, is an air mattress with some random body laying on the air mattress underneath a blanket. And surrounding him, or her at the time, I didn't know yet, was garbage. Like just like Taco Bell wrappers and like fast food and like old food and just stuff that was all rotting and gross, right? And immediately I turn around and I quietly close the door and go back out into the apartment hallway and rush as fast as I can to the leasing office to let them know that there's a man in my apartment and to call the police. So I do that. After I quietly close my door, I ran down to the leasing office, told the leasing agent I just spoke to call the cops, and that there's a random man living in my apartment or woman. And they did. They jumped on the phone with the police immediately. One of the employees came out, one of the leasing office employees, and was so shocked to hear that there was a random person in my apartment because apparently after Jordan had came in and made the complaint that I needed new locks, they had changed the locks like 2 days later. So within like a 3-day period, this person found my keys on the ground at Jordan's job. He worked at a supermarket. They found the keys. They took the keys to the apartment and they started squatting in my place, just living there. Now, the part that I don't understand is how maintenance didn't see this person when they changed my locks. Maybe they weren't there yet. Maybe they were there and maintenance just didn't see them or didn't care and thought it was me. I don't know. But the cops get there like 10 minutes later. Me and the leasing staff, basically tell the cops what happened and about how my keys got lost in public and now this person is living in my place essentially. And the cops start heading towards my apartment door to remove this person, right? And arrest them essentially. So me, the leasing staff, and the cops are all together, right? I'm following them to the door because I want to see what unfolds. I want to see how they, talk to this person. I want to see who it is. So we go to the door. The cops knock a couple times, slowly open the door. And as soon as the door opens, we all kind of peek our head in and we see this person on the air mattress uncovering themselves with a blanket. And I quickly realized it was a homeless man. He was very clearly homeless. He was wearing very, dirty and beat up clothing. Definitely looked very unkept and looked like he needed a home and was desperate. So it made sense why he took opportunity to move into my empty apartment. And he was sleeping there in the middle of my kitchen floor. And he woke up and saw the cops and saw all of us, and his face immediately kind of went into like shock. And the cops were actually very nice to him. They were very calm and like quiet about being like, hey, like everything's okay. Just, keep your hands where we can see him. Don't reach for anything and just come over here. And like, we just want to talk to you. And they ended up putting him in cuffs just for their safety and everyone's safety and talking to him a little bit. And the cops came up to me and they were like, hey, so like, what do you want us to do with this guy? Do you want to press charges? Do you want him to go to jail? Like, what do you want done? Now, I was having a little bit of a moral dilemma at this point because on one hand, he like totally trespassed into my apartment and was living there without my permission. So obviously that was not cool and illegal. But at the same time, this man was homeless, desperate, and living on the cold streets of where I live in New York. So I felt terrible for him because you got to be really desperate to do that. So I was like, listen, you know what? I don't want this guy going to jail because he won't get any help there. I want him to be taken somewhere where he can get help. Like, I don't know what his mental health status is. If it seems like his mental health is declining, maybe get him into like a facility If it's not declining and he seems fine, maybe get him into a homeless shelter or something. Maybe both. I don't know, right? And the cop's like, oh, we could do that. Yeah, like we could probably get him into a homeless shelter, a pretty good one around the corner, actually. And I was like, that would be great. So that's what they did. They brought him to a homeless shelter and got him checked in there and got him, a place to sleep and warm clothes and food and stuff and got him help over there. As far as I was told, his mental health didn't seem very bad. I don't know. He seemed like he was okay. So that's good. And yeah, I remember after this unfolded, I had some friends come over to help me like unpack my stuff. And they were all in shock that I didn't press charges on this dude or get him like put in jail for a long time. And I was like, bro, it was a homeless guy. As much as I agree that it was wrong, I would feel terrible if I was the reason this dude's life just got ruined. Even though he committed a crime and I probably would have been within the right to do so, I didn't want to do it. So yeah, I let him get help at a shelter and I never saw him again. So I feel like I made the right move. It was very clear that he just needed somewhere to stay because none of my stuff was stolen. Everything was okay. The only thing that got like ruined was my air mattress. He was sleeping on my air mattress at my apartment. So everything else was fine. And I had a lot of things in that apartment that he could have pawned off. I had like a very rare shoe collection that was there in New York that he could have easily packed up in a cart or a backpack and brought it to a resale store like 2 blocks away and probably made thousands of dollars off it. And he didn't. So I think this guy was a good guy. I think he just really needed somewhere to stay. Not saying if you need somewhere to stay, you should just go break into a house and sleep in it. That's not cool. You don't do that. But in my circumstance, I understood why he did what he did, and I didn't want him getting his life ruined over it, because I believe in second chances. But yeah, in the end, the homeless man got admitted into a shelter. My apartment in New York was safe from there on out, because I had some new locks. The apartment complex also refunded my $200 to change the locks, because obviously they felt bad that a homeless man moved in while I was away, so yeah. And I also found out that maintenance, when they changed my locks, because I talked to them when they were down there, maintenance changed my locks, then they just opened the door to see if everything was all good, and they saw the air mattress and a blanket over the person, and they just thought that I was like sleeping on the floor. So yeah, I guess maintenance thought that I was a homeless guy. That's nice. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below, and subscribe if you're new. I will see you all later. Peace.